Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Mathura Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Shatru Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
He's having a... Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hridisto Piati Durasta. That's the next verse. Hridisto Piati Durasta. Karma Vikshipta Chetasam. Atma Shaktibir Agrahyo. Pyantupeta Gunatmanam. Hridisto Pyati Durasta. Karma Vikshipta Chetasam. Atma Shakti Bir Agraho. Pyantya Upeta Gunatmanam. Please chant. neglected to invoke the blessings of Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The word for word. Hridi, in the heart. Sta, situated. Api, although. Ati, very. Durastaha, far away. Karma, by material activities. Vikshipta, disturbed. Chetasam, for those whose minds. Atma, by one's own. Shakti, powers. Agrahya, not to be taken hold of. Api, although. Anti, near. Upeta, realized. Guna, your qualities. Atmanam, by whose hearts. Translation and purports by the servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, disciples and servants. Translation. You reveal yourself within the hearts of those persons of pure consciousness who constantly hear about you, chant about you, worship you, glorify you, and converse with one another about you. But although you reside within the heart, you are very far away from those whose minds are disturbed by their entanglement in material work. Indeed, no one can grasp you by his material powers, for you reveal yourself only in the hearts of those who have learned to appreciate your transcendental qualities. Purport. The all-merciful Lord is in everyone's heart. Seeing Him there, however, is possible only when one's heart is completely purified. Materialists may demand that God prove His existence by coming into view as a result of their empirical investigations. But God has no need to respond to such impudence. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 7:25, Naham prakshaha sarvasya yogamaya samvritaha mudhoyam na bijanati lokomam ajam avyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Om agyantimirandasya jananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Shri chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale Swayam rupa kadamayam dadati swapadantakam. Nama om Vishnu padaya Krishna prasthaya bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane. Nirvishesha Shunyavade Paschatade Shatarane. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Cha Patitanam Pavanyebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I am a foolish and stubborn person, and often very dull of mind, and slow to hear on a spiritual level. And so I ask the blessing of you all here, and Srila Prabhupada, and my Guru Maharaj, and of course Sri Radha Nila Madhava, and all their associates, that I might say something beneficial. So you don't have to be here in the material world for very long. To discover that it's a place of misery, that it's a place of suffering, and it's not very comfortable to be in the material world. In spite of all of our work to amass creature comforts, a nice home, a pleasant, loving family, a cushy job with a nice bankroll and positive cash flow, loving and interesting, intriguing friends and associates, and hobbies, all the things that go into passing time while we are here in this material world. In spite of all those, if you were to ask 10 people, do they have unmitigated happiness? 10 random people, do they have unmitigated happiness, and why? If yes or no, you would get 10 negative answers. In the positive, no, I'm not happy. Yes, I suffer in this world. You might get 10 different reasons why that is. Chances are most of them will not be the correct answer of why, but you wouldn't have to press very much to get all 10 people to be aware of the fact that they suffer. Relationships don't work right. Things happen to a home. Either we get burglarized, or someone steals our things, or our house burns, or we get divorced because the person that we thought it was till death do us part has found someone else more interesting, or the myriads of things. People change, so our friends move on to some other lifestyle that makes our friendship with them inconsistent with where they're heading. We get fired because maybe we're aging and it's less expensive to hire a younger more qualified and more energetic person. Whatever the reason, these things happen. They're very common, and they cause distress to the living entity. And they cause us to experience not only misery, but attached to that general misery and suffering and worry is fear and anxiety. These are contributing to the misery. Fear and anxiety, anger, greed, and these things happen because we've misplaced our trust. We've misplaced that which we believe will give us happiness. We actually, until we become materially exhausted and either out of despair decide to leave this world and take a new life, or we become materially exhausted and begin to cry out and to question, we're always seeking some new thing, some new experience. Maybe if I joined the Burning Man crowd. I know I'm 60 years old, and maybe they've got it, so I'm going to act like a young person and join the Burning Man crowd. And there are older people doing this today, doing this sort of thing. I don't know if everybody here knows what Burning Man is. It's wild and crazy hippie life, and people are thinking they're finding happiness in that way. And it's not so. It's not so. So, until we've actually tried everything, smelled everything there is to smell, see everything there is to see, taste everything there is to taste, hear everything there is to hear, feel all the sensations that there are to feel, think the thoughts, the intriguing and attractive thoughts of philosophy and theology and, plumbing the depths of the intelligence and working puzzles and doing all the things to increase our mental capacity and our intelligence and pressing that to the end. In the final analysis, we are fundamentally unhappy. Fundamentally unhappy. Fundamentally unfulfilled. Oh, but there's new electronics coming out every year. When I get my new MacBook Pro, or when I get my new iPhone, when the 12 comes out, it's not very far away, then I'll find happiness. There'll be an app on that will make life work for me. You have to get the first 10, and make sure that they don't work either. That's right. Which means you have to increase your bank book, or you have to increase your credit debt in order to get that newfangled whatever. But yeah, the truth of the matter is that we are fundamentally unhappy, and you don't have to convince people of this. People know that they're fundamentally unhappy. Even the person who refuses on the outside to acknowledge anything negative and seems to be eternally optimistic. No, my life's great. And they won't say anything negative. They won't acknowledge any negativity in their life. Even that person, at the depth, their quest for constant optimism is merely a covering for that which the rest of us know. Material life is fundamentally a life of misery, a life of disappointment, a life of dashed hopes, and even the things that happen that are according to our desire just don't quite give us what we thought that they were going to give us. So at a certain point, we begin human life. When does human life begin? What I just described is not human life, by the way. That is animal life. If you were to examine it closely, all of those things that people in the human form of life are seeking before they choose to enter into human life are the same things that all the animals seek. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Well, I eat at the finest restaurants, and they even cook vegan. I got my new sleep number bed. We'll let you figure it out, that's not going to do it either. So human life begins when we begin to ask the questions, why am I fundamentally unhappy? Who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of my life? What is the meaning of this place? Where do I go after I die? Is there a God? Am I created by God? And we begin to ask these questions. In the verses that we're looking at this morning, very clearly tells us that the Supreme Lord is in the heart of every living entity. There's not a living entity that does not have the Lord seated centrally as the essence of the self, the source of the self, the source of the living entity's existence, and that there is a constitutional knowledge there as a result. There is a constitutional knowledge that answers all of these questions, all the answers to every question we could ever ask about life has a fundamental answer that can be found within the heart of every living entity, can be found within the heart because the Lord himself is within the heart of every living entity. The problem is that when we're engaged in the process of karma, which is essentially that which we described this morning, trying karma and gyan, basically, that is work for material gratification and the pursuit of knowledge for mental gratification. As long as we're engaged in those for the purpose of my own gratification, they do not take us where we want to go. A question leads to 100 more questions that are unanswered. And no matter how hard we try to get it figured out, somehow we become more and more confused. Is it not so? We become more and more confused. And the more we try to figure it out, what is the problem? What can I get to the bottom of this and find out why I'm unhappy? We seek and we seek and we seek answers. And until we actually let go, surrender, and turn to God and say a basic help. Help me. Help me. It's a great mercy when the Lord does this for a living entity, when he awakens a glimmer within, either by some circumstance, a memory from one's earlier life or past life, a happenstance of meeting someone who is a devotee, or getting a book, or something that reminds one, God is real. He's in your heart. He's the only one that can make you happy. And if we can hear that and accept that thought, a whole stream of wonderful things begin to happen in our lives. All of a sudden, we don't necessarily find happiness right away. Our circumstances don't necessarily change. My experience was, and often in Shastra it's mentioned, that things actually become worse externally. That was my experience. I began to cry out after having been a monk actually for years and couldn't get to the ultimate truth. Desperately wanted to find it and was very unhappy, even after years of practicing in another tradition. And my testimony is that when I began to cry out, things actually got worse. And the Lord put me in a position where I couldn't go anywhere but in. Has anybody else been in that place before? Where there was no other place to go but in. You have no resources left. There's no human being, no relationship, no anything that can, you're convinced. This is called material exhaustion, and it is the perfect place from which spiritual life can begin in earnest. So you begin to ask the questions, what are the wonderful things that begin to unfold? All of a sudden your circumstances start getting arranged where you're forced to associate with devotees, or you meet someone who can point you to the devotees, or you get a book, or you visit a temple. Things begin to happen, orchestrations begin to take place that move you infallibly in a direction to receive the answer to that call. Help. Help me, Lord. I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you, but I know that you're the only one that can make me happy, that you're the one that made me, and I ask for your help. And so the knowledge begins to come from that. We begin to take association with the devotees, and we're told simply, just chant this mantra. Simple words. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant this as much as you can, all the time. And this will take you to God. This is the way that God will answer all of your questions. Someone hands you a book like a Bhagavad Gita, Science of Self-Realization, says, read this, this will help. But the chanting is what you need. It's the all-determining factor. Included in the chanting of the holy name is coming to know the Lord's pastimes, His words, His personality, His paraphernalia, the place where He dwells. These are necessary also. And so as we begin to become a little bit attached to the holy name, we begin to become attracted to the books, and we begin reading. Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, what nectar. All of a sudden, the questions change. It's not even the same questions anymore. A whole new set of questions comes. How can I know you more? How can I go deeper into this experience? How can I serve you? How can I help others to begin to feel this happiness that started in my heart causelessly? The outward circumstances may still be the same in terms of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, but all of a sudden you're becoming happy within. And so what happens? what happens? At a certain point, well, we either continue faithfully in that process, or we begin to actually experience, after a brief honeymoon period, we begin to experience the, what's the word I want to use? The blocks or the impediments within us and in our life that are keeping us from moving on, keeping us from going further. And the temptation is to do and to turn ourselves to try to reorchestrate or reconfigure something in my outward life, or to reconfigure something in my thinking process. Something I've got to get in order to move on. And what happens is the process of going deeper into God, deeper into happiness, deeper into association with Krishna and with his devotees, it begins to languor. It begins to languish and slow down and even come to a stop. And we wonder, is the process really working? Shruttadev said, "You reveal yourself within the hearts of those persons of pure consciousness who constantly hear about you, chant about you, worship you, glorify you, and converse with one another about you." But although you reside within the heart, you are very far away from those whose minds are disturbed by their entanglement in material work. Indeed, no one can grasp you by his material powers, for you reveal yourself only in the hearts of those who have learned to appreciate your transcendental qualities. So, I just want to make one application here and then open it up for questions and discussion. I purposely keep my classes really super simple. And the reason why is because a lot of us miss this very important point, and it's so easy. We can even talk about it and know that the key to a rich and robust spiritual life, Sri Sri Radhanila Madhava Ki Jai, that the key to a robust spiritual life is the ceaseless chanting of the holy name. You say, well, I got my rounds done. I'm chanting my 16 rounds every day. And that's good. That's a good thing. You say, I read a chapter a day out of Bhagavad Gita. That's good too. That's excellent. These will eventually lead us to a pure heart that comes from and comes to those who constantly hear about, constantly chant about, constantly worship the Supreme Lord, glorify the Supreme Lord, and converse with him. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, and I'm not going to get the verse, I'm afraid. It is made clear to the sages at Naimisharanya that no one can become satisfied in bhakti yoga unless bhakti yoga is ceaseless and unmotivated. Ceaseless and unmotivated. Ceaseless meaning you don't stop. You say, well, I have work to do. I've got to meet the needs of my family and keep my house going. Well, that's fine. So working for Krishna is also part of the process. But working with a motive and working with a certain consciousness is important. However, it's ceaseless bhakti that brings us to the point of being satisfied, that brings us to a higher taste. So that's where I want to leave it. It's kind of an open end purposely for us to discuss what this means, what it means to you, questions you might have about it. Guaranteed, if you feel stagnant in your spiritual life, it's because of one of these categories or something that you're holding on to that's not allowing you to let yourself go and surrender to the hearing about, chanting about, worshiping, glorifying, and conversing about the Supreme Lord with the devotees. So, it's very simple. The Lord has made it so even a child can go back to Godhead. Even an adult with a child's mind, can make it back to Godhead. All the cookies are on the bottom shelf. We can become very complicated in our approach to our philosophy. It is very, very, very intricate and robust. It covers everything that's possible in human existence and human experience. But the way to go deep into that philosophy is the way of simplicity, the way of purifying the heart by bhakti yoga through Krishna consciousness. So I want to hear from you, comments, reflections. A reflection is something that you heard that really struck you, that you can take with you and put it into practice or think about it, ponder it. Or a question that leads to a further reflection so that we all can benefit from your thoughts too. Hare Krishna. Who's got the mic? And if not, I'll just read. I'll continue to read. I'm going to read something out of the Gita along these lines. Yes. I put you to sleep, that's what it was. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Shrutadev said, "It is not that we have attained the audience of the Supreme Person only today, for we have in fact been associating with Him since He created this universe with His energies and then entered it in His transcendental form. The Lord is like a sleeping person who creates a separate world in his imagination and then enters his own dream and sees himself within it. You reveal yourself within the hearts of those persons of pure consciousness who constantly hear about you, chant about you, worship you, glorify you, and converse with one another about you. But although you reside within the heart, you are very far away from those whose minds are disturbed by their entanglement in material work. Indeed, no one can grasp you by his material powers. For you reveal yourself only in the hearts of those who have learned to appreciate your transcendental qualities. There's nothing that we can think, say, or do to force the Lord's hand and make him reveal himself to us, and force him to give us mercy. There's no button to push, philosophically or otherwise. There's no yoga position to get into that will do it. There's no meditative trick, pranahari.
I think that's why some people, excuse me, shy away, or not just shy away, but like totally neglect this kind of theistic science. They neglect to accept that God is a person because it entails the need to subordinate oneself to a higher authority, Guru and Krishna.
Mm.
And in fact, all others, I mean, in one sense. But at least Guru and Krishna to begin with. And so I think that's the main, how do I say, anartha for atheists is this aversion to subordinate oneself to a person, because you're at the, like you just said, I mean, we're at the mercy of God. We can't really just do something on our own and attain something in a mechanical way. It's actually, we're at the mercy of another person. And for an atheistic person, we just can't stand that. So just, kind of sweep it under the rug, so to speak, and just don't, form all philosophies to prove that there is no God, and we don't need to go down that road at all. So I was thinking like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, one point that you made that I wanted to bring out a little bit, and that is that we also cannot approach Krishna independently. That the principle of Guru, the person of Guru, is a necessity. And when we are ready to do this work, when we are ready to do this work in earnest, then Krishna approaches us in the form of Guru. And he comes either as a Shiksha Guru or a Diksha Guru, someone that can initiate us, but he comes in the form of a person that can instruct us and give us guidance. And the more that we can actually see that this is Krishna himself coming to us and speaking to us and giving us direction, the deeper we can go into this relationship with Krishna. We have to get to know Guru first and surrender ourselves increasingly, hopefully. Anyone else? Vishal.
So I was listening to your class in my car, and you said something about we wonder if this process works. I think you said that, right? And so there's this nice. This is from the Memories books by Siddhanta Prabhu, and this is from Prabhupada. Somebody said that at the end of his lecture, Prabhupada said, so if you will just follow these 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds, then you will go back to home, back to Godhead. I guarantee it. He paused and looked around at all of us, then he said again, I guarantee it. So that's like a double guarantee from Prabhupada, actually. Double. One's enough, but you got 2.
So I'll comment on that, and that is this. It is a guarantee. You chant your 16 rounds, you keep the 4 regs, and you're going to go back to Godhead. The process of going back to Godhead, however, entails eventually becoming purified and attracted to a deeper and deeper and deeper relationship. So by necessity, the chanting of 16 rounds and the keeping of the 4 regs will purify one to the point of going deeper and deeper into the hearing, chanting, worshiping, glorifying, and talking about the Supreme Lord. It's not like we just chant 16 rounds and keep the 4 regs in an external way and then go about our business and not pay attention to the Supreme Lord ever, and we go back to Godhead. That's not what Srila Prabhupada is saying. You have to take what Srila Prabhupada is saying in the context of his entire teaching. and in the context of the entire teaching of our acharyas. Srila Prabhupada, of course, being the most succinct distillation. His teaching is the most distinct distillation of all of the acharyas. So, in order to finish the work, somewhere down the line, as our life becomes freed up, and let's just take it in terms of the Varnashram system, which actually isn't an integral part necessarily of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga transcends Varnashram Dharma. But at the same time, we use it loosely. So chant your 16 rounds, keep the 4 regs, come and worship the deity, do some service, and eventually what will happen is you will be led to, whether in this life or a next life, into pure devotion. So chanting 16 rounds and keeping the 4 regs is not necessarily pure devotion. Pure devotion means that you are ceaselessly engaged in being conscious of Krishna. Ceaselessly engaged in being conscious of Krishna. And I know this might be a blow to some people. They think, well, I'm practicing pure devotion because I'm doing my 16 rounds and keeping the 4 regs. But these are meant to lead to something else. There are other places where Srila Prabhupada says that we must chant ceaselessly. Chanting Hare Krishna means we chant ceaselessly. He's said that if we can, we should read Srimad Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. I can't give you the verses right off my head. They're easy to find. If you want to check me, they're easy to find. Ceaseless chanting. Ceaseless reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Ceaseless worship of the deities. Unmotivated, meaning I don't have any other attachment to my bhakti than I want to please Krishna, or at least the very least, I want Krishna. I want his association, and I want to please him so I can gain his association. And therefore, I whittle out of my life and cut out of my life everything. Eventually, I whittle out of my life everything that keeps me from doing that. And while I am stuck in particular duties at this point in my life, I'm going to do the 16 rounds, I'm going to keep the 4 regs, and to the best of my ability, I'm going to use my duties in a state of Krishna consciousness. Eventually, your kids grow up, and the Shastras tell us that at that point, you should enter Vanaprast. You should enter Vanaprast, which in our day and age, we cannot necessarily keep those verbatim. We can't wear bark and live in the forest. At least I can't. Probably most of us cannot do that. But what we can do is we can take on a fuller life of austerity and seclusion and detachment from family life so that we can continue to the purifying process. Continue the purifying process. And then eventually enter into a state of sannyas. Whether we receive a piece of cloth or not in these steps is irrelevant. What is relevant is that the process of renunciation, of using everything in Krishna's service, and of being ceaselessly attached to him in everything that we think, say, or do. There is no going back to Godhead without that. Without purity, this kind of purity. And you can be given it through your own process. You can be given it by the mercy of a pure devotee. You can be given it because you've come into this life already purified from a past life, possibly. But this kind of purity that is described is necessary, where we come to the place finally where we ceaselessly chant ceaselessly hear, ceaselessly worship. In other words, Krishna becomes God to us, our all in all, the supreme object of our love and devotion, the supreme object of all of our love and all of our devotion. So you have to juxtapose these two things. You have to juxtapose these two things. Yes, 16 rounds, keeping the 4 regs. This is perfect, but it's meant to lead us to something more down the line.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
See, we are giving much more importance to the spiritual things. Without materialistic grastas, the temple cannot run, you cannot survive. Mm-hmm. So I feel you have to have a balance between a material approach and the spiritual approach. We can't neglect material things. All
Correct.
the times we cannot say we will chant, 180 rounds or so. So it is always necessary to keep a balance so that our process goes on. It's not that acharyas, we can't be acharyas always. We have to be grahasthas. We have to help the temple in any way, financially or service-wise. So if you keep a balance of both, then I think that maybe, it's my opinion, it may be the right approach.
Well, let me speak to that. And so don't misunderstand me to say that you have to be in a hut somewhere chanting ceaselessly. That's not what I'm saying at all. Whatever it is that your hand finds to do, you need to do it as worship. You need to do it in a state of Krishna consciousness. We cannot be entangled in the affairs of everyday life internally, in terms of our motives, in terms of our focus of energy and attention, and go back to Godhead. This is why there is a process that exists where we gradually detach ourselves. But there are pure devotees that are very busy, no doubt about it. They're very, very busy, and they're not necessarily walking around with a japa bag on their hands, or standing in front of the deities 24/7, or reading Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. But the difference is no matter what they're doing, they're remaining in a state of Krishna consciousness, remaining in a state of doing what they do for the sake of Krishna, for his glory, for his movement, for his pleasure. So no matter who you are, whether you're a grahastha or a teenager or a single truck driver or a brahmachari, vanaprastha, sannyas, it doesn't matter. What matters is we can dovetail anything in service to Krishna. This is right renunciation. So we need to be careful that we don't go to the point of saying that therefore I can be entangled in the affairs of everyday life and think that I'm walking in pure devotion. There must be a process of purification that is taking place. And if that is taking place, one will naturally desire to eventually detach from family life, detach from business life, detach from these things so that one can go deeper. But it's not absolutely necessary. We see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita many personalities, pure devotees, associates, eternal associates of Lord Krishna that had lives that they lived. Ramananda Roy was a Kayastha, I believe. He was a clerk for the king. And eventually he renounced and followed Lord Chaitanya. But the point is that he was a pure devotee. And he had a very robust schedule working for the king. The difference is that he was totally pure. And everything that he did for the glory of Krishna. And when the opportunity came for him to detach from that, he took it in order that he might serve the Lord and the Lord's mission full time. Hare Krishna. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki.
You know, the question was confusing. Like he said, materialistic grahasthas. Grahasthas are supposed to be spiritual, living in an ashram. If they are materialistic, they are not grahasthas, they are grahamedi.
Yes.
So the question is confusing.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But I understand what he was meaning. He was meaning, what about for the married people? So let's draw it back in, please. Is there anyone else that has something to say? Hare Krishna. How are you, Matthew?
Great.
Good.
The way that you were explaining how the material world is so hellish got me thinking about this Krishna conscious phrase that when we lose our character, we lost everything. When we lose our health, we've lost something, and when we lose our money, we've lost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I related it to when a pure devotee leaves their body, they don't get rigor mortis. So that's like a proof that they don't even lose that kind of like health. It's something.
Yes. There are many instances of the remains of pure devotees, not just in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but in other traditions as well, where their body remains incorrupt for centuries. Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya ki jai.
Since about 900 years.
Say it again, please.
People online, they complain.
I don't care.
So Ramanuja, he said that Ramanujacharya is lying in state, and they have to clip his nails periodically because they're still growing 900 years. And there are many instances like this. So if there's no one else, I think we've covered the class sufficiently. Thank you for tolerating and for being here and listening and participating very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki, all the assembled devotees ki, Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhu yevacha patitanam pavanyebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
His Grace Rasika Siromani Das Brahmachari Prabhu ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Today's breakfast is cooked by His Holiness Radha Krishna Das Goswami Maharaj. So you know it's going to be good. So please honor, respect, and relish the mercy. Hari Hari Bo.
It's not usual epilepsy, because usual epilepsy, you're conscious of what's going on around you. You can see and hear. But he goes somewhere. Yeah, he goes somewhere. It's very strange. He can't get himself up. He said, "Mara, put him back to the front there." Yeah. That's the pure devotee. Yeah. Okay. Time to go.